Hey everyone, Emily and I are in the studio today to talk about Tracer. I'm just kidding, we're actually talking about the Overwatch League. Emily and I, well, I should say I was about to do a Travis Talks on the subject and some of the concerns that I had, and then today we were discussing that you were similarly going to do a written feature on this, or kind of talking about some of your thoughts on it. So we decided to do this joint video. Emily, what have you been thinking about Overwatch League so far?
All right, so this is before the whole thing came out today of the demo cities.
Right.
So previously, I just think Overwatch League is kind of very interesting to me because never have I seen in traditional sports or esports a league formed before the demand for it. So it's more of a top-down structure instead of like a grassroots structure, which is kind of how a lot of traditional sports leagues came to be. And then additionally, I guess my experience is primarily in League of Legends, and they established the League Championship Series after they saw the high demand in Season 2. So I think that this is a very it's interesting conceptually to me because I've never seen a league itself formed without a little bit more demand from, the player base, organizations themselves, whereas this is Blizzard trying to go in and very specifically court orgs from around the world, presumably, and then sell them spots in this league. Yeah,
there was not much of a proof of concept, I guess is a good way of putting it, right? For the fact that this might, or that they want this to succeed. So let's just say we're about 6 months out from this thing. They seem to be talking about like Q3, Q4, and as we speak, it's midway through March. So my concern is very similar to yours. There's not too much evidence that this thing can succeed yet, and it certainly seems like they're going really big without building much of a foundation. The other concern I have is just that there's not very much information out there at all about the thing. And it certainly made sense to me whenever they announced it at BlizzCon and there wasn't a lot to talk about and they said details to come. But if you think about like what information has come out in the past 5 months, we're almost half a year since the announcement, and there's just not really anything. So many questions abound.
Well, and I think another result of that is, like, for example, today we saw a screenshot from a presentation they were doing that had like a mock of different, cities in North America, Europe, and then China and Korea that would have these teams.
Yeah, as an example, they were saying it's a global league, and they had example,
and it was an example. And so, more specifically, this screenshot comes out, and it's just sample cities, and there's 11 in North America, and then, a few in Europe.
3 Europe,
yeah, and then
China,
one in China and one in Korea. And so going back to your point about a lack of information, when something like this comes out and people don't notice at the bottom, they're like, well, it's just a mock-up. We're still thinking it through. First of all, it could be just a mock-up, but it's also, to me, that speaks a little bit more to who they want to sell it to, right? So they're looking at a global league, but primarily the investors that it seems like they're looking for are in North America.
Yeah.
And then secondly, you take something like this, and there are so many people who are super hungry for information, they immediately jump on it, and they're like, why is there only one team for Korea? Like, why is there only one team for China? Because that just, I'm again, only coming at this from primarily League of Legends perspective, but China has so much money. Like, some of the organizations for League of Legends in China are owned by some of the richest people in the country. And limiting yourself to having only one team from China it's cutting yourself off to a lot of money.
And we don't know.
And yeah, this is all, again, like, this is me speculating based on a slide that is not even final.
Yeah. And so that's part of the problem is when you announce this thing, provide no additional details for it over the next 5 months, and then every now and then something comes out like this slide or something like that, or the reports that came out a while ago about supposedly prices being somewhere between $5 million or $15 million to get in as a franchise. Obviously, people are going to use that as the only information that they have, even if it's not entirely sure if it's true, and speculate like crazy. And that's, unfortunately, it's just sort of the system that we're in because, again, I think there would be less of that if this was coming a year from now, 2 years from now. But as it stands, this is supposedly launching in just like half a year, or in the second half of this year. So it's just crazy to me. And so many other questions like what happens to the teams right now that have players? Like, are we going to see Cloud9 in this league? Do they need to pay what is the rumored to be $5 million to $50 million? I mean, we hear it's a franchise. We hear that they are sort of shopping the stuff around, and that they are looking for people to buy into the league. Is Cloud9 going to be expected to buy into the league? If TSM picks up an Overwatch team, are they? There are like, and then what happens? Are you going to have these guys versus like if Mark Cuban decides to get in Dallas, like, and who gets the LA slot? Like, how does any of this stuff work, and how has it not been communicated at all so far?
Well, and also the problems around having a global league have been kind of reiterated throughout the years in esports. I know Red Eye kind of released this list of like, here are things we learned from
CGS.
CGS, like years and years ago.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of problems inherent to having a global league like this, just in terms of logistics. So like forget what my interest is, which is kind of more in the top-down structure, but then logistics of where current players are going to go, because already it's this weird clash of Overwatch is slowly building momentum from more of like a grassroots player organization perspective, but then Blizzard is coming at it from up here, and they're kind of that's clashing that way, to your point. But then additionally, just basic things like travel, like if you do own, if this is a final thing, like let's just pretend it is, there's 11 teams in North America, they're going to be traveling over the country, but like what happens to the one Chinese team, the one Korean team, the 3 European teams that travel? Like, are they going to spend most of their time in North America, or because they'd have to find housing if they're going to be playing presumably playing the North American teams around the same time. Similarly, for North American teams, like flying over one at a time to South Korea, China, and then I believe it was Frankfurt, London, and
I didn't even look at the specific cities.
But so like it's just logistically very odd.
Yeah, I mean, and Riot gets around this by having sort of these distinct leagues, and they play within each other, and then they kind of meet up for these international events. You can talk about if there are enough international events or not, but certainly there's a system here where it limits the amount of travel and the logistics that you have to worry about to only a couple times a year. And so so when you hear like global league, to your point, what are the logistics of that? One other thing that I'm worried about is that, sort of at the top of this video, we were discussing how you kind of want like this proof of concept and, start building. As you said, like League had this couple of years where they had MLG and IPL and all these other places doing events. Certainly there have been a handful of them already, but you are in this really weird place where nobody knows any of the data or the information about this league, and so no one truly wants to start investing in it and building something off of the back of something that could be just ripped out of their hands. Like if you went back and you talked to MLG or IPL, rest in peace, about would you have invested as much into the league as you did had you known LCS was coming and it was all going to be pulled away from you? There's a conversation about whether or not they probably would have. So I think teams, maybe not just teams, but companies are curious about whether or not they should invest in Overwatch or not. I mean, and speaking very bluntly here, we at Yahoo, I think, have tried to set aside budget and have this idea that we're going to be covering this league later this year. But it's so hard when you know nothing about what's going on. Like, do we need to find somebody who is in a different city because it's all going to be based out of Texas or something like that? Do we need to hire writers instead of video people because there's no way you can send them to all these different arenas, or try to find local freelancers? Like, it is just so hard for the industry to prepare for what this giant thing is because nobody knows what it is. We just know everybody keeps it's. I don't want to go too political on this, but it just reminds me of like, oh yeah, we're going to build a league. It's going to be huge. It's going to be the best league. It's going to be amazing. And you know who's going to pay for it? These owners. These owners are going to pay for it. That's what's going to happen. They're going to pay to get into the league and all this stuff. It's just crazy to me. So I don't know. Do you have any other thoughts on this?
I mean, that's it. I think a lot of people just coming from League of Legends and the fact that not all esports get along. I feel like people have this misconception that like people in League don't want Overwatch to succeed. Like I actually want Overwatch to succeed. I really enjoy watching it. I don't know as much about like the game, the meta game itself. I rely on people who do watch it a lot more regularly than I do. But like I really want this to succeed. My misgiving is primarily in that like top down versus ground up kind of thing where I've never seen anything like it, I guess. And that's what both interests me.
Well, CGS, I think, was an example
of
that.
CGS, and that didn't...
Yeah. To echo your point, anytime people like us put out a video like this or have a written piece like this, I think people start to say, oh, they just hate it or they want it to fail or they get really defensive. Or you hear of people at the company that get really upset that you have what they feel like you're doing is tearing into something. I could not want Overwatch League to succeed more. I think that the industry really needs another league. Like CSGO's in an interesting place. Obviously, we have League of Legends. Things only get better with the Overwatch League coming in. The industry strengthens. From a selfish business perspective, like I'd love to have another great game that like people are getting interviews for and all that stuff. So certainly want it to succeed, and I think that desire is why I get so upset whenever I just hear no information and I don't understand how the stuff is going to work and it's coming up soon. And the industry is all kind of betting on this thing that no one has any ideas about. So very good. Well, are you still going to write your piece now that we've done this video?
Maybe.
Okay.
I might go into like traditional sports history and stuff.
Yeah, I think that'd be good. Yeah, people can check out that, assuming it pops up in the next week or so.
Yeah, I want to see if this maybe forces them to.
This video?
No, not
wow.
this video.
No, Blizzard, if you're watching
offense,
this,
Travis.
Emily Rand believes that her statements today will force this video.
Wow.
Yeah.
No. I meant the slide.
Yeah, maybe we'll see more information.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, hey, thanks for sitting down with me.
No worries.
Happy we could
Thanks
talk about this. And for everyone else, you can check out the rest of our coverage of all things esports, Overwatch League, and more here at Yahoo Esports.